Putin's tanks faced one of the worst disasters of this war. Ukraine, with intelligence and precision, dismantled a brutal threat that could have changed the course of the conflict. Putin had assembled a counteroffensive with over 50,000 troops, including 10,000 North Koreans and tanks, ready to crush the Ukrainian resistance and retake the Kursk region, which was invaded by Ukraine. Putin believed victory was guaranteed, that his unstoppable tanks would smash the Ukrainian resistance. But Ukraine was one step ahead, leading Russia into a devastating trap that decimated the Russian tanks. Russia's powerful counteroffensive was a total disaster. But how did Ukraine manage this, and why does Putin keep falling for the same tricks? In this video, we will show in detail how Ukraine fooled Russia again, the massive losses Putin's forces suffered, and what this means for the future of Kursk. As Ukraine focused on establishing a foothold across much of the Kursk invasion, Russia tried to create a position for itself on the eastern side of the Snag River. The goal was clear: destroy Ukraine's bridgehead in Kursk, cutting off the supply route for Ukrainian troops stationed in the north of the region. Ukraine had withdrawn from fortified positions in the Kursk forest, falling back towards Mielo-LN and Dere, right across the Snag River. But Russia wanted more. Putin's forces aimed to capture every settlement along the river. So far, Russia had no success, as the Snag River served as a natural barrier. Ukraine fortified the other side, with soldiers occupying high ground, allowing them to spot and rapidly withdraw troops when necessary. Russia was practically stalled around the river, so Putin decided to change strategy. Instead of attacking the river fortifications, he sent more troops to try and break defenses further north, in Tolstoi Lug. The objective remained the same: cut Ukrainian supply lines in northern Kursk. Capturing Tolstoi Lug would also open the way for direct attacks on Novovyzhivka, a crucial position for Ukraine, located east of Kursk. Putin attempted to take the encampment earlier in the counteroffensive, but his initial attempts failed. Ukraine withstood 5 waves of Russian attacks, inflicting heavy casualties. Estimates suggest at least 300 Russian and North Korean soldiers were killed or wounded, and at least 18 out of 29 heavy vehicles were destroyed by November 11th, showing Ukraine was prepared. In December, Putin knew taking Tolstoi Lug would pave the way for strikes on Novovyzhivka, pressuring Ukrainian forces. The Russian assault began. Russia sent multiple armored personnel carriers, APCs, to cross a large reservoir north of Tolstoi Lug. The goal was to breach the reservoir, allowing more Russian forces to advance. However, Russia had attempted this route before. Ukraine knew they would try again. They had established constant surveillance, using thermal camera-equipped drones as an early warning system. When Putin sent his APCs, the system activated, and Ukraine immediately launched Javelin anti-tank missiles at the convoy. The Javelin, a portable system with a 2.4-kilometer range, is equipped with high-explosive heat warheads, capable of destroying heavy equipment like tanks. In minutes, the missiles hit the Russian APCs, leaving the vehicles in flames. The few Russian soldiers who escaped tried to flee into the nearby trees. But Ukraine was ready for this too. FPV, first-person view drones, were positioned around the reservoir, allowing Ukrainian troops to locate and neutralize the dismounted soldiers, completing the destruction of Russia's first wave. Putin wasn't truly trying to capture Tolstoi Lug. Russia was sacrificing the APCs to expose and identify Ukrainian firing positions. But Ukraine was one step ahead again. Confident, Russian troops advanced with several large waves of armored vehicles, including tanks, to attack the discovered Ukrainian positions. This is a common Putin strategy: discover the enemy's position, then launch troops and equipment until the lines are broken. But even before Russia sent its first APCs, Ukraine had extensively mined the surrounding area. When the Russian forces tried to advance, they realized they couldn't just bypass the Ukrainian positions without destroying their own vehicles, as the fields were full of explosives. Thus, the waves of Russian tanks were forced onto a single route, exactly where Ukraine wanted them. The trap was sprung. Many Russian tanks and vehicles were stopped by dragon's teeth, a trap composed of small concrete pyramids that immobilized tanks, a tactic dating back to World War II. Putin still relies on an outdated view of war, trusting tanks to advance. Ukraine used mines to force the Russians down the desired path, where the dragon's teeth stopped them and left them vulnerable to counterattacks. The few tanks that got through were exposed to Ukrainian fire, becoming targets for artillery, Javelin missiles, and drone attacks. Each wave of Russian attacks was defeated by the same threat. Retreating was not an option, so the tanks advanced, being hit by ordnance from the Ukrainian Battle Brigade and the 36th Marine Brigade. Images from the battlefield show the destruction. The scene is a field of humiliation, with Russian tanks and vehicles destroyed in their attempt to advance near Tolstoi Lug. Russia still hasn't been able to advance to Novovyzhivka, forcing Putin to reassess his strategy. The loss was humiliating. Now, Russia relies solely on infantry attacks, as their tanks and combat vehicles were destroyed so quickly by Ukraine's tactics that they lack resources to support their soldiers. The bigger error was underestimating the Ukrainian strength around Tolstoi Lug. Putin tried the same strategy that failed weeks before, expecting different results. He didn't realize Ukraine would use the time to strengthen its positions. Russia's approach has become predictable, a major problem. They are committing the same mistakes as in the 2008 invasion of Georgia, relying on poorly trained conscripts and outdated equipment. This predictability, combined with Ukraine's clever use of layered defense, has been crucial. Ukraine's defense strategy at Tolstoi Lug followed several layers: Javelin and FPV drones, followed by planted mines, and finally the dragon's teeth on the road, forcing the Russians into a controlled path. This intelligent, layered approach highlights Russia's lack of tactical adaptation. When the Russian mechanized divisions discovered the mines, they should have realized they were walking into a carefully planned trap. But Russia made the mistake of continuing to attack instead of retreating and re-strategizing, leading to the destruction of more tanks. Another significant error is the lack of equipment. Russia is running out of resources, relying on weaker vehicles like BMPs and BMDs, and even armed tractors, suggesting a critical equipment shortage. Russia lost 364 units of heavy equipment between October and November alone. Russia has a troop advantage, 50,000 versus 20,000, but the lack of heavy equipment hurts their offensive capability. Will Russia retake Kursk at a high cost, or will Ukraine maintain its advantage? Will Putin finally learn from his mistakes and adapt his tactics, or will he continue to fail to anticipate Ukraine's moves? And for how long can Ukraine's resistance endure constant pressure? These questions remain unanswered, but one thing is certain: the war in Kursk is far from decided.